Hi, Chair Travis Argy, call this hybrid state plumbing board meeting of August the 24th to order at 9:30 a.m. Debbie, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Connected. All the board members are connected virtually this morning through Zoom. Chair Travis Argy.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Matthew Rozzell.
Here.
Craig Anderson.
Here.
Corey Fraser is excused. Melissa Gett is excused. Molly Keller.
Here.
Thank you, Molly. And Joe Lebold. I don't see that he is connected, Mr. Chair, but we do need to note when he arrives. But we do have a quorum.
Okay. All right. So first is the approval of the agenda of order. Is there any additions or changes to the agenda of the order? Anybody give an indication if there is? All right. Hearing none, I chair argue rule the rescheduled meeting agenda and the addition of items HLB as well as the new order of business approved. Is there any changes to the draft meeting minutes? Hearing none, I chair argue rule the draft meeting minutes of June 15, 2023 final. The date of the next plumbing board meeting is October 19th, 2023. Andy, will you please introduce the next agenda?
Thank you, Chair Argy, members of the board. My name is Andy Skinner. I'm the Plumbing Program Chief, State of Oregon Building Codes Division. Today we have with us Oregon Health Authority to give a presentation. I'll pass this off to Molly, one of the board members, and she might be able to give a little more explanation and also let us know what their presentation is. Thank you.
Yeah, so we were asked to talk to you all about the nitrate issue over in Umatilla and Monroe County, and I've invited Gabriela, who is one of the managers at OHA. I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. She's one of the managers with OHA, and she's on the committee, so she's going to give us a little bit of an overview on what's going on currently. So, Gabriela, go for it.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, Chair Argy and members of the board. Really appreciate this opportunity to share information with you about work that OHA and lots of partners are doing in regards to domestic wells with elevated nitrates. And I really appreciate the time on the agenda. And I understand that you, I'm sorry, I'm here from a hotel room. We're doing some community forums out here last night and tonight. And so I appreciate accommodating the schedule. I did send a PowerPoint presentation, just three or so slides. And so I don't know, Debbie, if that's something or someone can pull up.
Yes, Gabrielle, we'll do that right now.
Thank you. And I will say, sorry for the record, I am the Environmental Public Health Section Manager at the Oregon Health Authority since April. Also, I was tasked by the governor's office to manage the governor's Lubguama Lower Umatilla Basin Groundwater Management Area Public Health Project. So I'm wearing two hats these days. Next slide, please. So nitrate is a very natural subject, that is substance that is all over, that our bodies create. You all know it in lots of different forms as fertilizer, as manure. It's everywhere. It does a lot of good things in the right place and time, but in the wrong place and time, specifically in people's drinking water, above 10 milligrams per liter of water, it can cause or contribute to health problems. So that number 10 is set by the Environmental Protection Agency. It's what, as Molly Keller, which nice to see you, Molly, your face. It's been a few years. that is the standard that public water systems have to meet. And that is a level that is set as the safe level over a lifetime that one can consume without causing harm to health. For if you are exposed to levels higher than that, we have two populations that we are really concerned about, because exposure, even for a short time, can cause health effects. And that is to babies that are fed formula that is mixed with water with high nitrates, and people who are pregnant or trying to get pregnant. One of the things that too much nitrate does is it reduces the ability of blood to carry oxygen. And so for those two populations, short exposures at the wrong time can cause pretty concerning health effects. For everybody else, it's more about chronic long-term exposure, but there are respiratory, thyroid, a couple of cancers that there is evidence, both in people and from lab studies in animals, that high nitrates can cause health problems. So this is the reason that we are concerned about people being exposed to high nitrates. The nitrates are colorless, odorless. You wouldn't know unless you do a test what your level of nitrate is. And again, if it's above 10 milligrams per liter, technically, if you are an adult, you could have much higher levels up to a year without contributing to these chronic health effects. But for folks in the counties where we are working, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the specific area, most people have been living here for a lot longer than 1 year. So the exposure, for many years to levels above 10 milligrams is a concern. It doesn't affect your skin. You can use it for everything else: bathing, washing food, dishes, laundry. It's really drinking and cooking are the uses of concern. Next slide, please. So this area, the Lower Umatilla Basin Groundwater Management Area, or LGWAMA, as we not so fondly call it, it's designated under state law since 1990 by the Department of Environmental Quality. There are a couple of other areas. And so these are areas where the nitrate in groundwater has been monitored for 30 years now, and it is at levels that are much higher than natural levels, and they are attributed to the economic lifeblood of the area, which is all the different agricultural activities. So irrigated agriculture, food processing, dairy and cattle feedlots, the manure, all these activities put nitrate on the land. And in this particular part of Oregon, and I don't know how well you can see it, there's a dark shaded area that is the northern part of Morrow County and the northwestern corner of Umatilla County. The soils are such that it's mostly sand, and it just goes straight down to the water table. And our public water systems in the area, most of them have to treat water for high nitrates in order to meet the Clean, Safe Drinking Water Act requirements. But for people who are on a domestic well, those are not regulated. There's no no requirements that aside from for new wells, well construction. There's a lot of older wells, there's a lot of shallow wells. And so this issue, while it's been known for a long time for a variety of kind of regulatory and legal reasons, it became a focus starting a couple of years ago, and really went into high gear about a year ago after the Morrow County Board of Commissioners issued an emergency declaration, and the county started testing well water and finding high levels, and the state came in and got involved. OHA went to the legislature and got emergency board funding to do something in this area that we can't do in the rest of the state. In Oregon and in the rest of the country, the idea is if you have a domestic well, it's your responsibility to ensure your well water quality. You have control over the well construction or repair. You are responsible to test it, to make sure that you keep your animals off it, that your septic is not too close, all those things. But in this area, because of the soils and the agricultural activities, no matter how well somebody takes care of their own well, the activities outside of their control are affecting the water that they bring up in their domestic wells. So this is an area of the state that we've been given resources by the legislature to be able to offer free testing, laboratory testing of water, free water delivery in the immediate term, and where effective, water treatment systems. And that, and so I'll go to the, if you can go to the next slide. Starting, at the beginning of the year, really, we were able to launch seriously into a big campaign to alert people to the problem, because there's a lot of people who aren't aware of the health concern. So we've been doing a lot of mass communications, a lot of outreach through partners, through our local county public health authorities, through local community-based organizations to get the word out that there's free testing available, that if your water tests above 10 milligrams per liter, that we will provide water delivered, and where effective, in-home treatment systems. And because this is up to now, OHA's role with domestic wells has just been to provide public health information that people should test their wells and hand them a well owner's handbook and a referral list of professionals who can help them with wells. We've never been able to go beyond that. This is the first time that we are doing a direct public health intervention. And so we had a lot to learn. And we assumed that we would put out an RFP for in-home treatment systems, and that we would get a bunch of companies that were ready and able to fulfill the need. And the need is for treatment systems where we have test results above 10 milligrams per liter up to 25 milligrams per liter, because the state is only purchasing and paying for installation and maintenance of systems that are certified to remove nitrate. And so that is the range that we're talking about. We have so far about 500 lab tests in hand out of about 4,000 tests that we are shooting for in terms of how many wells we think there are in the region. That's not a very known number. Right now, about 15% of water sample results are coming in that range where a water treatment system could help. So as we're testing, we're confirming how many wells there are out there, and the approximate number of treatment systems that we think we might be needing is between 600 and 1,000 treatment systems. And unfortunately, because of a lot of good economic activity that's happening out here and the other opportunities that there are, we only got one company that bid and is our vendor, our contractor, who's been an amazing partner out here, but has not been able to attract plumbers to do the installation. So even though we've had money since last fall, and we had budgeted, for the fiscal year ending in June, we had budgeted, I think, $800,000 to buy treatment systems and pay for the installation and maintenance for a year. Our vendor has only been able to install 25 systems, and not for lack of wanting to install them. It's been very hard to get plumbers to take this job because there's so much construction work going on around here. And so this is the conundrum that we find ourselves in. We have the resources, we have the ability to help people get on safe water, and there's this obstacle that we need help to overcome. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for her? All right, hearing none. I appreciate your presentation, and this is the first I had heard about this until about 4 days ago when I read this agenda item. So
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Has your firm or anybody reached out to the local Union 598 in Pasco?
We sent a letter. So when we first were looking for vendors, we sent a letter through the Oregon Groundwater Association to all of those that organization's members. And again, only got the one local bid. We did get interest from another company in Clackamas County that we prefer to work with a company that was local. So about 3 weeks ago, we sent out a letter to every single plumber in those two counties and surrounding counties. And we've gotten a few inquiries back, but the options that we have, and we have some calls, some follow-up calls that we still have to make to get back to these folks. So I did get an email and I sent this message in reply saying, the option is to be a subcontractor to our existing vendor. And that would be ideal and the fastest. Our RFP will be open and someone else can, go through the state contracting process to become another vendor, and we would welcome that also. I didn't get any reply back from that preliminary inquiry, and I think the other calls that we've gotten have been from independent plumbers who, this is my guess, it would be pretty daunting to go through the state contracting process. It's something that it's easier for a firm to do. So what I'm hoping is that we can encourage those folks, those handful of folks, to get in touch with our vendor, Pure and Soft, and see about working as a sub to that vendor. But we would welcome either.
I lost you in the last part of that communication, but maybe I can spread this further outside this meeting to try to get you some help. I can't guarantee you that, but I'll reach out to some people that I'm aware of. So anyway, does anybody else have any questions for her? Okay, thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Mr. Chair, before you go on, this is Debbie. I would like to call Joe Lebold. He was in attendance at the beginning of the meeting, but he did have sound issues. So, Joe, are you here, please?
Can you hear me?
Just
what
barely.
Is going on?
You're cutting in and out, Joe, but we can hear you. So we are going to go on with the
Okay.
meeting. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Debbie. All right, next up is the plumbing program update, and that's with Mr. Andy Skinner.
Thank you, Chair. Argue members of the board. Andy Skinner, Plumbing Program Chief, State of Oregon Building Codes. I just have a couple of updates for the board today, just kind of following up on the tail end of the code change cycle. We are off to the printer, yay. We should be on track for books before October 1st if there's no hiccups in between. Also, I just kind of want to communicate to everyone too, every code cycle for those that are certified, we have renewals of OICs, we have code change that's available either through our website or other means. We will be providing that code change for the plumbing side of it after October 1st through a communication document. Should be pretty straightforward. The other thing I wanted to also share is we have also updated, of course, all the interpretations and statewide alternate methods to meet the new code, but also the WHI packet that we send out to those individuals that qualify to sit for the WHI, which is a water heater installer's license. That packet is updated. It's ready on the shelf to go after October 1st for those that qualify and send in their applications. And that is all I have for the board today. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Does anybody have anything? All right, Andy, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the legislative update, and that's with Mr. Andy Bolton.
Good morning, Chair Argue, members of the board. I'm Andy Bolton, Senior Policy Advisor for the division. I'm here this morning to give you a brief update on the legislation that came out of this year's legislative session that impacts the division. There's a full summary in the board packet that goes into depth on the bills that impact the division and the division's plan for implementing the requirements of those bills. Normally, I'd be focusing on items that are specifically relevant to the subject matter of this board, but there really wasn't much in terms of plumbing legislation this time around. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of broader themes from the session that may be of interest to you, and then I'll just get out of your hair. You can review the full summary if you'd like more detail, and if you'd like even more detail, the full bill language as well as supporting documents and legislative histories are available on the Oregon Legislative Information System website, also known as OLIS. If there are questions, I'll do my best to answer them, but if it is a detail-specific question, I may have to take it away with me and then get back to you after I'm able to review bill language. With that said, let's get started. Increasing housing supply was a major theme of the session, and the primary bills that the legislature used to address this priority were House Bills 2001, 2889, and 3395. There is a lot going on in these bills, and it would be outside the scope of this update to go into full detail, as a lot of it does not really impact the division. But there's a few items that impact the division, including creating a definition of visibility and accessibility, and to explore allowing single-exit residential buildings under the OSSC, but nothing directly impacting plumber licensing or the OPSC. The summary in your board packet will give you a better idea of the extent, and again, if you'd really like to get into details, the OLIS page for these bills is a great resource. But any questions on the housing bills specifically?
I don't personally have any, but does anybody else on the board have any?
Okie
Okay. Hearing none, thank you.
The other sort of big ticket item that impacts the division is House Bill 3409, which is the climate change and greenhouse gas emissions bill. It actually combines about 15 different bills from earlier in the session into one giant bill. Again, there is not really any impact from this bill on plumbing licensure specifically or the OPSC, but it is something that the division is going to be acting upon. So I'll just give a quick rundown of some of the items in that bill that are relevant to the division. The bill adds consideration of greenhouse gas emissions to the list of priorities the division must consider when executing agency actions. The division is directed to consult with the Environmental Justice Council when evaluating priorities that the division sets and actions that the division takes to adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change. The division is currently exploring the best way to implement this consultation, but it will likely involve a regular check-in with the council on pending agency action in this area. The bill places into statute the reporting requirements that had previously existed under Executive Order. Executive Order 2004. The division will continue to fulfill these requirements as it has under the executive order that was put in place in 2020. The division is directed to study the use of lower carbon building materials in the building code, and to this end, the legislature funded 2 additional positions with the division. The division anticipates contracting with a third party to assist with this study. The Oregon Department of Energy was directed to develop energy performance standards on covered commercial buildings. The division will consult with the Department of Energy on these standards. Okay. Are there any questions related to the climate change or greenhouse gas emissions bill?
I personally don't have any. Does anybody else have any? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Okay, next up is a general overview of the enforcement process. Julia, I'm going to try your last name. Hire?
Did great. That is correct. Thank you. I think Debbie's getting the slides up. Yep. So Chair Argue and members of the board, my name is Julia Hire, and I am the enforcement manager here at the Building Codes Division. Thank you for having me here today to present a general overview of the enforcement section and the work we perform. Next slide, please. The enforcement team at the Building Codes Division is comprised of 10 individuals. Myself as the enforcement manager, 3 contested case representatives, 4 investigators, and 2 administrative support staff members. The enforcement team promotes building safety by ensuring businesses and individuals that work in specific trades, construction trades, comply with Oregon Building Codes law. This includes enforcing the licensing laws in our state for the electrical and elevator program, the plumbing program, and the boiler program, and all on the board's behalf. Next slide, please. So we enforce licensing violations pursuant to the Advisory Board Civil Penalty Matrix, which was adopted by each of the boards on or before March 7th of 2017. And next slide, please. A copy of that penalty matrix is included in your board packet and is available on our website, and we have it here presented as well. The penalty matrix provides assessed penalties for specific types of violations, and those penalties amounts increase if there are additional violations committed within 5 years of the date of the present violation. The penalty matrix also describes the amount of the penalty which can be stayed in a settlement and the minimum amount which needs to be due and payable for any particular violation. So this is the first page of the matrix. Next slide, please. The matrix is 2 pages. The second page is here in front of you now. And again, that's also published in the information on our website and in your packet. The conditioning, suspension, and/or revocation of a license, certificate, or similar authority are not part of the penalty matrix, and the board or the division acting on the board's behalf may take action against a license, including against a first-time violator. Next slide, please. So anyone can file a complaint or report an alleged violation regarding a business or an individual. The Construction Contractors Board, CCB, also conducts site checks throughout the state and forwards relevant violations to the Building Codes Division. And complaints are also frequently received from members of the general public, other government agencies, and workers in the trade. We ask complainants to provide the division with any information they may have to assist us in our investigation. That includes a description of any installation, identification of the alleged violator, whether an installation was witnessed, and contact information. The enforcement team holds weekly meetings to discuss complaints as a group. The technical experts, such as the program chief, are also consulted on cases and often part of those weekly meetings. If a violation appears to be present, complaints are assigned to an investigator, and that investigator gathers relevant information regarding the complaint and conducts interviews with parties and with witnesses. Investigators also identify violations while they're in the field completing site checks. And when a violation is identified via a site check, the investigator will have a case open on that matter as well. Ultimately, when the investigation is complete, if there's sufficient evidence of a violation, that case gets forwarded to the program chief and a contested case representative. The contested case representative will draft notices on cases, and that notice will be served on the respondent, typically via certified mail at their current address. And if that notice is contested, we begin the contested case process. One incident can result in multiple cases. For example, unlicensed work may result in a notice against the person who performed the unlicensed work, a notice against the company who allowed the unlicensed work, and a notice against individuals who allowed unlicensed work. We typically issue related notices at the same time, but the cases may resolve at different periods for different reasons. That includes the time it takes to successfully serve the notice on the person or the business. The timeline for appeal, it's 20 days or 60 days, depending on what is in the order itself. Whether the notice becomes final as a matter of default or if the request for hearing is filed, and whether the case settles or proceeds to hearing. Hearings take place before the Office of Administrative Hearings. The administrative law judge hears testimony presented by the respondent and the division and listens to arguments and reviews the record. The ALJ then issues a proposed order. Usually it's within 45 days from when the record closes. And any party who disagrees with the proposed order can file written exceptions. The board then has the authority to change or reject the proposed order. And then the board's decision is subject to appeal before the Oregon Court of Appeals. The enforcement section presents cases to the relevant boards to report on final orders, which includes cases that have become final as a matter of law due to default, and to obtain approval on settlement and to present proposed orders from the administrative law judge for final board approval. The enforcement section is happy to provide information to assist in further review of licensing actions and civil penalties in any committee setting or with the board at a future meeting. We hope the general overview of enforcement is informative, and we welcome any questions that you might have in relation to the general overview that was provided. Next slide, please. That is all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any. We've been a board of, most of us have been here for 8 or 9 years, so we're pretty comfortable with how the matrix works. And I appreciate you do giving an overall view, though. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions for Julia?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Matt.
Through the chair, what percentage of complaints turn into cases? I mean, just roughly.
That's a great question. I don't know roughly. It's something that we could probably gather. There's sometimes, like just thinking about our past couple meetings, almost all the complaints have turned into cases. A lot of times we get complaints that people are misdirected, thinking that perhaps we are the entity that can address the concern that they have, but it's not something we enforce. It might be an issue for CCD, it might be an issue for BOLI, it might be an issue for workers' comp division, it might be an issue for the local jurisdiction. So those are the types of complaints that we typically inform the complainant. It's not something we can take action on, and we try to point them in the right direction. But as far as the percentage, I am not certain, and it would just be a guess.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
So I also just wanted to say that I've worked with your team, and they're great to work with, and I appreciate all the work that they do. I know they're busy and they're running a million miles an hour. So please tell them thank you.
Thank you. I will pass that on. Thanks.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Julia? All right. Thank you. I appreciate your time, and we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the final vote on the order for Robert C. Edwards. Michael Mayorga-Hamilton to address this item.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. For the record, I'm Michael Mayorga-Hamilton, contested case representative with the division. I'm here to present the proposed order and final order in the Robert Edwards license denial case and to explain the documents in the packet. The first document in the packet is a memo for the division that summarizes the proceedings in Mr. Edwards' case. I will note that there was a clerical error on page 2 of the memo. In paragraph 2, the third sentence from the end reads, "Respondent also failed to meet the conditions and requirements to obtain a reciprocal license." This is the only place it appears in the document, and it should read that the respondent failed to meet the conditions and requirements to obtain a journeyman plumber license. The second document that you have in your packet is a proposed order from ALJ Chiller, and the third document is an order for the board to sign, so should you choose to adopt ALJ Chiller's proposed order. The facts of the case are straightforward. The respondent submitted an application to the licensing division to obtain a journeyman plumber license. The division denied his application because he did not submit proof that he had completed a registered apprenticeship program or had received a letter from a registered training committee or a board-approved training program stating that he was qualified to take the examination. He also did not submit proof that he completed 576 hours of academic training as required by the administrative rules, and he did not provide, nor did he provide proof of sufficient on-the-job experience after he acquired his NITC journeyman plumber license. And by failing to provide verification that the respondent met the minimum requirements to obtain a journeyman plumber license, the division determined that respondent's application may be denied because it was considered to be incomplete in a material respect, and it also failed to meet the conditions and requirements to obtain an Oregon journeyman plumber license. On June 8th, 2023, the proposed order was issued. ALJ Chiller affirmed the division's notice, writing that the respondent failed to demonstrate that he meets the minimum qualifications to qualify to take the journeyman plumber license examination, and that his application should be denied. The division recommends amending ALJ Chiller's proposed order on page 1. Paragraph 5 to correct the year of the hearing from 2022 to 2023. The board has three options regarding the proposed order. The board can either issue a final order and attach the proposed order written by ALJ Chiller with the proposed changed. They can amend the proposed order and specify what the board would like to alter in the proposed order. Or they can disapprove the proposed order and direct the division to approve the respondent's application for a journeyman plumber license. And a motion is required on this item.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the board members have any comments or questions for this gentleman?
No.
Okay. I'm willing to make a motion unless somebody else feels the need to. I hear none. I, Chair Argue, make a motion to issue a final order and attach the proposed order written by the ALJ Chiller with the proposed changes. Motion's been made. Is there any discussion?
No.
All right. All right. Hearing none. Debbie, will you please do the call?
Yes, sir. Joe Lebold,
Aye.
Molly Keller,
Aye.
Craig Anderson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matthew Rozzell,
Aye.
and Chair Travis Argue.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next up is for contested case representative. Michael, you're back up again.
Back. Thank you. Again, Michael Mayorga-Hamilton, contested case representative. Before the board, we have a summary of consent orders that were recently negotiated by the division on behalf of the board. We've entered into consent orders in 4 cases since the last board meeting, and all settlements, including the amount owed and suspended civil penalties, fall within the guidelines of the matrix and contain the standard conditions. The first case on the agenda is C 2022-119, Platinum Plumbing LLC. The respondent in this case was assessed a penalty of $5,000 for allowing unlicensed individuals to install toilets, sinks, shower fixtures, and tub fixtures. The respondent has previously entered into a consent order with the board in case C 2019-240. Therefore, the penalties in the current matter were increased based on the penalty matrix, and the previous suspended penalties were reinstated. The respondent has agreed to pay $3,000 in the current matter, with the remaining $2,000 suspended for a period of 5 years, as well as the respondent has agreed to pay the $3,000 reinstated penalty from the previous case. Respondent's application for a new PB license is denied, and respondent agrees that it will be disqualified from obtaining a PB license for 30 days starting on the date the consent order is signed by all parties. The second case on the agenda is C 2022-185 in the matter of Ryan Shelton, which is related to the Platinum Plumbing case. The respondent in this case was assessed a penalty of $5,000 for installing toilets, sinks, shower fixtures, and tub fixtures without a journeyman plumber license. The respondent previously entered into a consent order with the board in case C 2019-256. Therefore, the penalties in the current matter were increased based on the penalty matrix, and the previous suspended penalties were reinstated. Respondent has agreed to pay $3,000 in the current matter with $2,000 suspended. Respondent has also agreed to pay the reinstated penalty from case C 2019-256 in the amount of $1,250. The third case on the agenda is C 2023-16 in the matter of Eric Schnarrenhorst. The respondent in this case was assessed a penalty of $6,000 for installing hot and cold water lines, drain piping, relocation of drain pipes, and the installation of a new toilet with drain line connections without a plumbing contractor's license, without a journeyman plumber's license, and without a permit. Respondent has agreed to pay $2,000 penalty with the remaining $4,000 suspended for a period of 5 years. The fourth case on the agenda is C 2023-005 in the matter of T&J Woodworks. The respondent in this case was assessed a penalty of $5,000 for installing a drain system at a residence without a plumbing contractor license and for allowing unlicensed individuals to perform plumbing installations. The respondent has agreed to pay $1,250 with the remaining $3,750 suspended for a period of 5 years. I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay. I reviewed all this. I thought it looked like it was in order. Does any other members have any questions for Michael? Okay. Hearing none. Matt, I hate to throw this on you, but you're the guy that's the technical guy in the group. Could you make a motion with Michael's help on these?
Sure. So I make a motion to adopt the 4 cases proposed for resolution as outlined in the Enforcement Board report and issue a final orders. That's sufficient?
Thank you. All right, a motion's been made. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. Debbie, will you do the call, please?
Yes, sir. Joe Lebold, Joe Lebold.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe. Molly Keller.
Aye.
And Joe, you keep cutting out. I can hear all your back sound, but I really can't hear you. So we'll go on with roll call. Craig Anderson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matthew Rozzell,
Aye.
Chair Travis Argue.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is a summary of 2 enforcement cases with Michael again.
Thank you. So the cases we have before you are previously resolved through default orders. The first case is C 2021-12. It's in the matter of Rodney Shale. The respondent in this case was assessed a penalty of $9,000 for allowing unlicensed workers to install and replace water and drain lines, water heaters, a toilet, shower heads, bathtub, and sink faucets. Respondent also failed to have a plumbing contractor license and obtain a permit. The second case is C 2022-57 in the matter of Nathan Miller. The respondent in this case was assessed a penalty of $6,000 for allowing unlicensed installations of a water line, piping, and faucets. The respondent also failed to have a plumbing contractor license and obtain a permit. I'm happy to answer any questions on these as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Michael? All right, so we don't have to make a motion on this one, right?
That's
no
correct.
motion required. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be the board will hear oral and written testimony. Public comment. Is there any public comment, Pierre?
Thank you, Chair Argue, members of the board. Pierre Sabagh, policy analyst with the division. Wasn't sure if I'd get to speak to you guys today. It's later than usual. As of this morning, we hadn't received any requests to give any public comment to the board. We'll hold the line open for a second in case there's anyone that didn't sign up that would like to provide public comment. So if you would like to provide any public comment, if you're here, please speak up now. Hearing no one, it's back to you, Chair Argue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is the appeals. There is no appeals. There is no unfinished business. Board decide on requests received from Stephen Costello. That's with Pierre again.
Thank you, Chair Argue, members of the board. Pierre Sabagh, policy analyst with the division. This agenda item is the request to include thermal expansion and relief valves into the Oregon Plumbing Specialty Code. Those representing Sioux Chief are here to speak to the board about this request, and our plumbing program chief, Andy Skinner, is also here if there's any questions or facilitation. So please, if you're here representing Sioux Chief, you can speak now and present. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. I want to thank you for letting us present. My name is Steve Costello with Gordon and Associates. We are the manufacturer's rep for the Pacific Northwest for Sioux Chief. On the line, we also have Brian Ismert and Michael Berry. They will be presenting this morning. Debbie, I don't know if you got the PowerPoint that I sent you.
No, I haven't received it yet.
Okay, I can share my screen and bring that up and let Brian and Michael present if that is okay.
Is that okay? Yes, that's fine.
Okay. And can you everybody see the screen?
We can see it just fine.
Okay. Brian, did you want to take over from this point?
That's the last slide, Steve.
Okay, let me, sorry about that. Oops. There we go, sorry.
You can click to the next. So thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak about this product. Steve asked us to present this just for immediate adoption if possible. We came out with a line of thermal expansion relief valves, about 10 years ago, and had been offering them on water heater connectors, and have since expanded the offering. And there's been a little bit of, and Steve can further say where the I guess confusion is on use of expansion tanks versus thermal expansion relief valves, and how it's not a universal adoption just yet in Oregon or in any state. So we just wanted to kind of educate as much as we can, answer any questions on this. So you go to the next slide. As we see it in most codes, they are allowed. So we just want to get clarity on if they are allowed by Oregon directly and for immediate application within the plumbing code of Oregon. We understand the confusion, I think, arises on the use of expansion tanks, the historical means for thermal expansion relief, versus this product, which is spring activated, and it relieves the thermal expansion based on a tension spring. And then, so you see the code there, the code and for Oregon. So you can go to the next slide. This is the product offering that we currently offer and are offering across the United States. So just, we're looking for adoption of this product to Oregon's direct code or an application of its use. And if you guys are unfamiliar with it, we can accept any questions. I did have a video in here if you want to show the videos, Steve.
Okay.
All right, here's a quick test to show an adjustable TUR or thermal expansion relief valve. The max on this is 125. It says on this 125. It is set to its max right now, and 80 is the first set point. So if I screw that all the way in, it would be 80. So this test is for 125. It's screwed all the way out to show 125. If I can show it on the side here, set to 125. So what I have here is a bump rig. So I got house, air, and then this is what it's reading right now. I'm set at 100. And as I tighten down this, you'll see it go to 125 and then it will leak. So I have one more spin or two. Beacon doing its thing. 125.
Yeah, so that's my very unprofessional video for you guys. But just showing that the operation of these devices, we test every device that we sell to work at its prescribed pressure limit. Most of what we sell is set at 125, which is below the T&P valve, which is already within the system. And then we do offer one that is adjustable, which you just saw the video of. So I guess that's pretty much all I have. If there are questions to Steve or myself or anything else. And do you want to ask any other questions, Steve, or whatever?
I think we've answered that very well. So does the board or chairman have any questions for us?
My first question is, why do we have to make an immediate decision? Why haven't we gone through proper channels like everybody else would do with their fixtures and such?
I think what it was is the IGC, which is the certification, is not directly in the code references. And because it's not directly in the code references, then that we're working towards that with IAPMO, with UPC, to make sure that that is actually listed in the code references. But because it's not yet, then this would have to have, I guess, board approval for acceptance.
So why would we make an exception for you guys and not everybody else?
We're not asking for just ourselves. It would just be for the use of this type of product. So there are probably 10 or 15 companies that sell it, but it's not in the code body yet.
What's your length of duration before you think it's going to be in through IAPMO?
We had asked for the next revision, so that's going on, I guess, right now. We got in like 2 weeks ago, so they said it'll probably be next code cycle.
Chair Argue, Pierre Sabagh, Policy Analyst of the Division. The board does not have to take action today if you don't want to. So that is up to the board, but there's no mandatory action required. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Does any other board members have questions for these fellows?
I have a quick one through the chair. I saw the UPC stamp on the documentation that was in the PowerPoint. What is it listed to it currently?
It's an IGC so the IAPMO R&T issued an IGC. It was tested to the standard that they have created for it, which I think our file is like, what is our file number on that?
On that PowerPoint, we do have the file number listed.
So it's like 1309 or something,
yeah, something like that.
But it's been tested through IAPMO, just like Zerns or any of our competitors' products have been tested to the same IGC.
IGC 128.
But that IGC is not in the actual code references just yet.
If I may, through the chair, just add some clarity here. This is Andy Skinner, Plumbing Chief, State of Oregon Building Codes. So the board's authority on products is to approve standards, not the product itself. And the standards, this particular standard was written by IAPMO, and that's why you see the UPC stamp on it. IAPMO has multiple UPC stamps that are associated with different products, different standards, and different approvals. The standard is not in Chapter 17. To my knowledge, as has been communicated, has not been before IAPMO yet for inclusion into the next iteration of the UPC. So I just kind of wanted to kind of lay that out. Also, I had a question to Steve or Mike or Brian. Through my documentation review, I've not seen any indication that this meets NSF 61 for potable water use. Is there documentation that provides that information?
Yes, that would, I believe, be in or within. That's part of the prerequisite or requirement under the IGC. They test to that. So we do have that, and I can provide that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Does there anybody else have any questions for him? All right, hearing none. I appreciate you guys' time. Like I said, I'm not going to make a decision on this, and I think we'll move on to the next agenda item if that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have next the review of the approval committee recommendations, and that was with Mr. Pierre.
Thank you, Chair Argue, members of the board. For the record, Pierre Sabagh, Policy Analyst for the Division. The board's Continuing Education Committee has been evaluating courses and instructors on the board's behalf. This past July, the committee reviewed 12 applications from 2 organizations 2 courses were recommended for approval. 10 instructors were recommended for approval. A motion is needed to approve, amend, or deny the committee's recommendations, examples of which are in your board packet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I believe you're muted.
Thanks. You saw my lips moving, but no sound. I appreciate your time. I'm going to make a motion to approve the committee's recommendations for approval of the courses or denial of the courses and instructors. Motion's been made. Is there any discussion?
No.
Okay. Hearing none. Debbie, will you do the call, please?
Yes, sir. Joe Lebold.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe. Molly Keller.
Aye.
Craig Anderson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Matthew Rozzell.
Aye.
Chair Travis Argue.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion carries unanimously.
All right. Well, there are no announcements. And the next is our favorite one, adjournment. I adjourn today's meeting at 10:26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and everyone.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a